A big one, of course, Austin Ekeler will play for the Chargers in 2023 after the team added $1.75 million in incentives to his contract. So obviously great to see Ekeler back with the Chargers. Not a big boost here to the contract. It feels like both sides just had to find a way before he ultimately, assumingly, becomes a free agent after the season.
Yeah, I mean, it's the best spot for him, right?
Yeah,
because we've seen what he
ago.
produces in Los Angeles. This offense is going to be a monster, I think, because they get Rashawn Slater back on the offensive line. They had Quentin Johnston. Theoretically, Mike Williams and Keenan Allen should be healthier. And the main thing is Justin Herbert should be healthy because he was banged up all of last year. Ekeler is a very good chance to be the number one player in fantasy again.
He was the number one running back last year, almost 22 fantasy points per game. Since 1970, he is one of only 3 running backs that have at least 18 touchdowns and 100 or more receptions in a season. The other 2 guys, Chris McCaffrey and LaDainian Tomlinson. It's kind of ridiculous the company he's in. Last 2 years, he has 38 touchdowns from scrimmage. That is 12 more than any other player. And so Ekeler going back to this thing. And the other thing is again, football's a mental game, right? I like the fact that, so he wanted more money. He got more money, sort of, but they're all incentive-based. Incentive for him to want to play well. He also knows that he's a free agent at the end of the year. So what's the best way to get paid a lot of money if you're Austin Ekeler? Perform really well this year, hit all your incentives, and then, oh, by the way, now you're coming off this monster year as a free agent, go out to the NFL. So, look, Eckler's my number 2 running back, and if somebody took him as the number 1 running back, I still have Justin Jefferson number 1 overall, but Ekeler, once again, will be a fantasy superstar. Friend of the podcast, friend of the show,
yes.
Austin Ekeler.
Multiple-time friend of the show.
Multiple time.
Yeah.
He's been on the show multiple times. We love Austin Ekeler.
Best friend of the show.
Best friend
of the show.
Yeah. Right.
All right, this next one.
And if he wanted to do it full time, just so you know, in case you're wondering.
Could we Croucher out Ekeler?
Yeah, pretty much.
I'd cop that. I'd understand that.
Yeah,
that'd be
pretty
fair.
much.
Yeah, that's fine.
Our next one here is from Josina Anderson. She reports Aaron Rodgers suffered a strained calf at OTAs.
So it begins.
Yeah, I mean, he's old. It's going to happen. I mean, very.
Once again, he says he's old, and he looked right at me.
I did. That one was on purpose.
Barry's got 2 strained calves as we speak.
Yeah. It happens, right?
It does.
Our injury expert for those 40 and over.
I hate both of you.
Because he didn't really do anything at practice. It was just, it looked like he was walking out of practice, strained calf. Take the day off, Zach Wilson. You throw the ball.
Yeah, it'd be fine. There's nothing.
Okay.
There's nothing a darkness retreat or some ayahuasca can't fix. He'll be fine.
Yeah.
I think this would be a bigger deal if it were August.
Sure.
It's May. But any news around Aaron Rodgers is news, and so worth noting. I do think, it's interesting. I want to just bring this up. You mentioned so Zach Wilson gets some reps here. Connor, as somebody who covers the Jets for a long time, you also work with our friends over at SNY doing a bunch of stuff with their Jets coverage as well. Has there been any talk, because so much of the attention has been on Aaron Rodgers and Zach Wilson has sort of been forgotten, which I think in some ways is really good.
Oh, it is.
Let him just be in the background and and take the spotlight off him. But has there been any sense around practice or talking to things that Wilson's learning from Rodgers, or this is a good thing, or this may be an opportunity for him to resurrect his career as a backup to number 8 now. I gotta say that.
They think that. They really, there's a reason why their other quarterback on the roster is Tim Boyle. They are not pressing to sign a number 2 right now. They want to see how Zach Wilson looks this summer. It's OTAs, who cares? But he had a great day in OTAs, throwing to guys like Garrett Wilson, Jeremy Ruckert, some of their starters out there. So the Jets believe that the only way they could have a resurgence of Zach Wilson was with acquiring Aaron Rodgers. If it was Carr, Tannehill, whoever, it was over. This is the one way they feel like in a year or 2 they see what they have, and if Zach Wilson learned anything. And so far, it's May, but it's been really good for them.
Right? I think I would almost take heart in how incredibly bad Wilson was last year, where it was almost went beyond, he just didn't regress. No, he's completely broken. It's just completely gone. It was like Chuck Knobloch can't throw to first base anymore type of thing. And the fact that it was that and not he's just been, a 4 out of 10 or whatever. The fact that it was so bad makes you think that, he can piece it together again, because it's something that he just needs to get back confidence-wise. I guess at some point he's probably going to get another chance, just because Rodgers isn't going to be there for 4 or 5 years. I guess that's part of the Rodgers deal.
Because again, I think he was a kid that came in with all these. He was young, right? He was very young when he was drafted. He comes into New York, tough media market. Comes into a franchise at the time was picking second overall for a reason.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot around him. So a lot of expectations on him. Up and down rookie year, got injured as well. And then all of a sudden last year, the Jets are good. Out of the blue, the Jets are all of a sudden good. And it's just like, now there's pressure on this kid that didn't get a ton of reps. And, there's the ghost stuff and everything like that. And so it just, I don't know. I just felt like it's a tough situation. I think if Zach Wilson had been placed in another situation in the NFL, his career probably looks different than it does right now.
Yep.
Yeah, a more supportive franchise, a smaller market, something like that.
The thing as well is just with the NFL, like there's so few games. Like Zach Wilson has played so few games. You can't write a guy off we've seen so little sample of. Obviously, there hasn't been much good so far, and normally guys who do make it have shown something by now. But again, the talent is such and the sample is small enough that there's still a chance.
Yeah, listen, I'll give you a couple of examples just off the top of my head, right? So first off, Geno Smith. We just talked about, right? Like if this conversation a year ago is like Geno Smith was a bust, right? 18 months ago, if you'd asked anyone, people say, speaking of former Jets quarterbacks, right? That Geno was a bust. What about Ryan Tannehill? People forget that Ryan Tannehill was a top 10 overall pick for the Miami Dolphins, and considered very mediocre there. I don't think he didn't have as poor a start as Zach Wilson.
He had
a
terrible season though before he went to Tennessee.
Yes,
he was very, very bad.
He was signed as a backup to Marcus Mariota.
Yep.
People, Miami just wanted to get rid of him, and Tennessee got him very cheaply to back up Marcus Mariota, and it wasn't until Mariota got hurt that he had a chance, and then he's been lights out ever since.
Yep. Daniel Jones,
another guy that people thought was 1,000% as a bust. And by the way, and I'll also say this, and just whatever, because it's not on our Roto World headlines, but there's been a lot of talk about sort of the Trey Lance had a great day at camp the other day or whatever. I'm not ruling out Sam Darnold. I'm not ruling out a Sam Darnold comeback either. Get him in that Shanahan system, we'll see.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think Darnold might be the best quarterback on that team. That's a very real chance. He played really well in Carolina in the back half of the year. And I think Brock Purdy, there was a reason that Brock Purdy was the last pick in the draft. And the fact that he looks so good, a lot of that has to be Shanahan in the context. So Sam Darnold, best arm in 49ers history.
Right. According to Matt Maiocco. Yeah. So anyway, I'm just saying there are examples of people of players coming in struggling early on, but then ultimately becoming productive NFL players. And so I think there's still that path for Zach Wilson.
So this next one, kind of one of those ones that makes you shiver a little bit. Former Patriots running back coach Ivan Fears said he thinks Ty Montgomery has a great chance to be the third down back and take some of the load off Ramondre.
Okay.
We'll see.
Sure.
Yeah.
Maybe. James Robinson's there. Pierre Strong is there as well. Ramondre is going to be the guy. Could he take some of the load off? Sure.
Somebody has to.
But Ramondre Stevenson's going to touch the ball 20 times a game. And by the way, he's really freaking good. He's a top 10 running back for me as well. I think he's going to be great. So this is just more about trying to figure out who the insurance running back is if you draft Ramondre Stevenson. So there may be some value for Montgomery in deeper PPR leagues if he is in fact that third down back. But it doesn't feel like Ramondre is going to come off the field that often this year.
No. Ty Montgomery with a bit of Raheem Blackshear type of vibe where he doesn't really exist outside of kind of just ruining things for other players fantasy-wise. But I'm sure Ramondre will be fine.
This one from Cleveland, The Athletic's Zach Jackson writes that the plan for Jerome Ford is to let him show he's ready for whatever action Nick Chubb doesn't take. Obviously, Kareem Hunt is still out there in free agency. Maybe a little opportunity for Jerome Ford, the former running back from Cincinnati.
We talked about that. If you go back and look at my Combine column, I talked to a team source around Cleveland, and the things that came back to me about Cleveland's offense, the two things that came back to me was, number one, this is going to be a much more wide-open offense this year. That they're going to – this is no longer – Nick Chubb 3 yards in a cloud of dust. You don't pay $250 million to a quarterback like Deshaun Watson and have him hand off. They're going to go 3, 4, 5 wide quite a bit. They're going to be a much more pass-happy and fantasy-friendly offense. One of the reasons why I know you really like Cedric Tillman, I do as well, this season. I got to interview him at the Combine as well, but Amari Cooper and Njoku, the passing attack should be good. So that was one of the big things that came away. The other big thing was Jerome Ford is the guy you want. He's going to be Nick Chubb's backup. They really like what they have in Jerome Ford. It's one of the reasons why Dearness Johnson was allowed to go. One of the reasons why Kareem Hunt's not going to be back is because of the confidence they have in Jerome Ford.
Yeah. Nick Chubb, it's weird to say because he's Nick Chubb. He's such an established commodity, but he to me is one of the most interesting players in the league fantasy-wise next season just because we haven't seen him in a potentially elite passing game, a spread offense. Like it's always been the Nick Chubb show, or the Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt show. Like maybe with the space off, maybe he gets better. Maybe he has more usage in the passing game, or maybe he gets marginalized a bit more. I just don't know. So I think he has a lot more range of outcomes than Nick Chubb usually has.
I think he's 12 touches. I think he's going to be literally like, I would take the under on 15 touches a game for him. But I also think it's going to be a much more efficient offense that's in scoring position. So he may touch the ball less and have a better fantasy year because he scores more touchdowns. I mean, because around the goal line he's as good as there is in the NFL. And so I do think Ford is an interesting flyer late in best ball drafts or as insurance for Nick Chubb. It's going to be a good offense.